So we drove home with our second scan picture. Oh. Hello and welcome back. So this video is, like I said in my previous video, all about my experience of the first 12 weeks of pregnancy. I took a positive pregnancy test on the 23rd of January and I predicted that I was about 3 to 4 weeks pregnant because of other dates. I immediately called my mum and my stepmum to let them know. They knew that we had plans to have a baby and they were really pleased for us. And then when Fraser got back from work, I told him as well, and we were both very, very excited. We hadn't predicted that we'd get pregnant that quickly because I'd just come off contraception and we'd researched that it could take around 2 to 3 months to fall pregnant. I took a test because I was feeling quite sleepy, I was feeling tired in the evenings, and I was feeling a little bit nauseous as well. So being a primary school teacher, I wanted to make someone else in the school aware of my pregnancy, so I told my partner teacher the following week. It was really early, I was only 5 weeks pregnant, but it was good to have someone else in the building know of my condition. So then we had our first midwife appointment. We chose our hospital and we went to our first appointment together. This was where we just sat down with a midwife. I'd self-referred through an online form and we went through a little bit of our family history and our background. They took my blood pressure, they took my bloods, and they took a urine sample, and they asked about our family history, any illness or anything like that. We also discussed things like lifestyle, drinking, smoking, neither of which I do. And she also informed me that obviously because of my young age, I was very low risk. So the first appointment went relatively smoothly, and at that point I thought I was 7 to 8 weeks pregnant. I then made the decision to tell the head teacher at my school as well, so that another member of staff in the building knew of my condition. I was quite nervous about telling people at work, just because, again, like I've said before, about my age, and I worried what people would think. But I didn't really need to worry. She was really pleased and congratulated me, and she was really positive. It was at this point that I was starting to feel really rather nauseous, especially in the evenings. I was losing my appetite, so I wasn't really eating much at dinner time. We went to visit Fraser's mum to share our news with her, and the day that we came back, I started to feel really, really unwell. Around that time, I took a day or two off work. Unfortunately, I had started being sick in the mornings and it was making me feel really unwell. On the 5th of March, we had our first scan, which we went to together. Now, we were in for a bit of a shock at this scan. Obviously, the first scan is usually done at 12 weeks, so I assumed that I was 12 weeks pregnant. When the sonographer scanned and took the measurements of baby, I was only 9 weeks pregnant. So I had calculated all my dates wrong. I was actually 3 weeks behind what I thought I was. I was a little bit put off by this, mainly because I was feeling so poorly at this point, and I thought when I got to 12 weeks I would start coming out of it, and I realised that I actually had another 3 weeks of morning sickness to go. It was at this point that things got really bad. I lost my appetite, I was being sick most mornings, and even though I was still going to work most days, I was having to take some time off sick. There was a particularly bad Friday in the middle of March that I had off sick, and my mum came up to London to look after me. She said that I was more sick than she had realised and that she really wanted me to go home with her so I could fully recover for a week. This made me really nervous. Obviously, the idea of, as a teacher, of taking a week off work is not something that you can do lightly, but she also advised that I ring my GP and get some cyclizine, which is an anti-sickness medicine that you take for morning sickness. Just as a side note, my mum is a midwife. She no longer is in practice, but she lectures in midwifery, so she definitely knows what she was talking about. So I went into work on the Monday morning, ready to discuss with my head teacher about taking the week off work because I was feeling so poorly. Now at this point, obviously everything started kicking off with the virus, so she took one look at me, saw how poorly I was, and she sent me home anyway because I was high risk. So I picked up my cyclizine from the pharmacy, and then I came home to Eastbourne, which is where my mum lives. I stayed for a week. I took 2 cyclizine a day. I took one in the morning when my sickness was particularly bad, and then I took one in the afternoons as well when I started to feel the nausea return. Then the government released their advice on pregnant women, and they said that we had to socially distance for 12 weeks, so I knew at that point that I wasn't going to be returning to work for 3 months. I stayed in Eastbourne because I felt a little bit safer here than in London due to the rising levels of the virus. But obviously Fraser was still working and living at our flat in London, so we were apart at this point. The full lockdown happened, my stepmum came home and we picked up Fraser as well so that we could all be together in Eastbourne. I was getting really nervous at the thought of having 3 months of my pregnancy without him, so it was really nice that he was able to come and join us. On the 26th of March, we were booked in for our second 12-week scan. We drove up to London for this scan because I was still booked into a London hospital, and unfortunately Fraser couldn't come in with me. I had to go in on my own. But it was fine. They measured baby, they did my blood tests, and everything was absolutely fine. Baby was growing really well and there was nothing to be worried about. However, I did have a funny thing at my scan. My baby was in all sorts of strange positions and the sonographer spent a long time making me jump up and down to try and do her measurements. It would not face the right direction. It was facing with its bottom in the air, it was facing away from the sonographer, so unfortunately we did have to spend quite a lot of time trying to move them around. So we drove home with our second scan picture, and at this point my sickness was on its way out. I was still being sick very occasionally in the mornings, and I still get bouts now where I feel slightly nauseous. I just need to make sure that I keep myself fed and have lots of water and other drinks, and make sure that I'm eating not large meals but little and often throughout the day. So that is my experience of the first 12 weeks of pregnancy. Now, unfortunately, it wasn't the most positive experience. I was very poorly and it did make me quite down about the pregnancy. I know for my next pregnancy, or my advice to anyone who is suffering with morning sickness, please just go to your GP, get some anti-sickness medication, because it really helped me and I definitely should have done it sooner. So for my following videos, I've got lots of ideas. I'm going to talk baby names, I'm going to talk nursery inspiration, I'm going to show you all the things that I've bought for baby and the nursery so far, and of course I'm going to talk about my second trimester. I hope you've enjoyed my video about my first trimester. Like I said, if any of you are in the same position and you're struggling, please just go to your GP. I know it's difficult at the moment, but definitely get some anti-sickness medication if that is something that you are struggling with. And as I said before, I would love to hear all of your stories. Please leave your stories of your pregnancy and your first 12 weeks below. I would love to see them. I hope you have a lovely day and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye. Fraser, can you shoo the seagulls away out your window?